friends, Rena here. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. I am so happy to have you. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the decor I made for my home for Thanksgiving this year. Now, Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays, and it's because it actually reminds me of how amazing and wonderful God has been to me and to my son on our journey through life. And I practice gratitude daily, but Thanksgiving is an extra special time of year. I find that I do a lot of reflecting, and even when I think about things like the actual harvest and how much we're actually provided for, it just makes me feel very, very grateful. And so I thought I would make this video. It's coming out a little bit later than I wanted it to. Unfortunately, I fell ill, and then my kiddo got ill, so we got a little bit delayed. And then also, I just wanted to mention, I know a lot of people start their Thanksgiving videos sort of like in August and earlier in the year, but I really like to enjoy my summer. I don't want to think about fall in the summer, and I really just have learned on my journey to allow God to, create the tempo and the pace for my life. So I find that our world has become so incredibly fast-paced that, even Christmas decor is out on the shelves already, and I feel like it's so easy to just get caught up and swept up in this sort of race and this pace that whoever is setting for all of us. And so I choose to every day just slow down, just to enjoy life, to embrace every opportunity that I can, to find something to be joyful about, to be grateful about. And so I just want to thank you for being here today and for giving me the opportunity to be able to share my crafts with you and share some of my home with you. And I just, this year I wasn't really feeling the fall vibe, like the color scheme that is. I typically love oranges and yellows and really vibrant color, but this year I don't know if it's because it rained so much here that I didn't really feel like we had much of a summer, and I kind of wanted to extend the freshness, if you will. And so I decided to kind of go with a brighter, non-traditional color palette, but something that goes with my decor in my home, and also it would help me to transition very easily from summer to fall, because I already decorate with roses all throughout my home, and those things I typically take down for Christmas, but at least if I keep this color palette up, it makes a pretty easy transition even for next year, where I have the roses and the greenery out for the summer. I can kind of continue with that color palette for fall. So just a few things I played around with. I'm still going to experiment a bit. This isn't quite like the final look. At the end, I'll show you where I ended off, but I think there's so much that I can add to it, and I love your feedback. And if you haven't subscribed as yet, I would be so grateful if you would. But without further ado, let's get started. So for our first craft, we're going to be making these beautiful cream colored acorns with gold caps. Now I just picked up some acorns from the Dollar Tree. They were $1.50 for a pack of 10. And all you're going to do is just start out by choosing the color you'd like for the actual acorn itself. And so I'm going to be mixing an ivory color. Now I'll mention this later on in the video, but this would have been much quicker if I had used chalk paint. So some of why it took me so long to do some of the crafts was actually just because of the drying time, because I started out with acrylic paint, but once I switched to chalk paint, things went much quicker. But as you can see here, all I'm just doing is holding on to the top of the acorn and just using a little paintbrush to put on the cream color. Now, it took about 3 coats, truthfully, using the acrylic paint, but it would have probably only taken 2 using the chalk paint, and the chalk paint would have dried much, much faster. Now, previously I had started out
painting the top of the acorn first, not the bottom. If you paint the top first, it's actually much better because you can actually stick the paintbrush up under the cap when you're doing the base. So if you paint the top first, it doesn't matter if you get gold on the bottom part of the acorn, it will be covered up. It's harder to actually paint the top first. So that's the only tip that I have, the one thing that I would change if I was doing this all over again. Okay, so now it's time to paint the tops of our acorns, and I'm using a pretty flat and small paintbrush, and this is pretty easy, but you see what I mean where I said it would be easier to paint the top first. If you paint the top first, then you don't have to be as careful around like the edges. Like now I have to do some touch-ups. If I were to paint the top first and then the bottom, I wouldn't have to deal with the touch-ups, but that's okay. It didn't take much longer. I still had some wet paint handy and I just did it really quickly. So these tops tend to sort of absorb a little bit of the paint, so you just want to kind of brush it on or I should say have a good amount of paint on your brush, and then you can kind of brush it on in some spots, and other spots you'll have to pat it on just to get into the little crevices on the lid of the top of the acorn itself. Okay, so now I'll be working on these little resin pumpkins. These were pretty easy to paint, but again, I would recommend using chalk paint. It took a really long time for the acrylic paint to dry on these, but look how they turned out in the end. Really nice color, and then I just painted the stems in gold. So I used the exact same color mixture that I did for the other for the acorns as well. So it was just that sort of creamy color with sort of like an ivory, and then I added a little bit more yellow just to warm it up a bit more. And for the stem, it took maybe 2 to 3 coats of paint, so that was okay. I did other things in the meantime. So to add some dimension and detail to these pumpkins, what I'm actually doing is going in with a really thin brush, and I brushed off some of the gold paint onto the foam board that I'm using there. So my brush isn't really saturated. It's almost going on sort of like it would if it were chalk paint. So it's sort of like dry brushing in a way. And so as I go through each of the creases in the pumpkin, then I'm also brushing on some of the gold onto the actual pumpkin wedges. And so these turned out really cute as well. And I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. If you find that you put too much gold on, just dab another paintbrush into your ivory mixture, and you can kind of tone it down a bit and cover up any mistakes that you think that you may have made. So for our next craft, I'm going to be using these foam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. I love the color, and I was actually planning on using some of this in my color scheme, but I found these two and they ended up being perfect. So next I'll also be using some driftwood pieces, which are excellent for stems for our pumpkins. So I pulled off the flowers. I kept those flowers in my stash so I can use them for other projects, and then I went into the driftwood bag to see if I could find two pieces that were similar in size, and just literally put them right into these two little pumpkins, and that was it. Easy peasy. So these two pumpkins, I actually peeled them. Yep, I took the coating off of them and just painted them, and I love the way they turned out. They look kind of stony, and so I love them the way that they are, and I'm just going to be looking for two more driftwood pieces that are about the same size so that I can replace the plastic stems that they came with. The stems that these two came with were really tiny. They just didn't really look right, like they didn't really look proportionate. So I chose to replace them with the driftwood, and that would also help them tie in with the blue ones and some other ones later on in the video. All glued, and there you have it. Voila, all done. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I ended up peeling the pumpkins. So because I was using acrylic paint, it literally just was taking forever to dry. So I just got the notion to peel the pumpkins and see if the paint would dry faster if it was on styrofoam. I was just willing to try anything at that point. I like to experiment when I craft. I had it in my mind though, I figured that chalk paint would work, but I didn't have anything I could use on hand in terms of the color that I was going for. So since I knew I was going to be home for the evening anyway, I decided to try this option, and these two, let me tell you, were nothing like the other ones that I peeled. They took forever. So if I had to do this again and I had this much trouble peeling them, I wouldn't. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even recommend peeling them at all. I just recommend going straight in with the chalk paint. But if you're just looking for like a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of therapy, I think that this would be a good option. But if you're in a rush, this would definitely not be the way to go. The way to go would definitely be just go straight away with the chalk paint. friends. Okay, so I finished peeling both pumpkins and it took quite some time, but I'm all done. For some reason, this particular shape and style took forever. The other ones, it came off fairly easily, the peel, but I'm not sure if this took a while because there's so many ridges. Maybe they added extra glue or something like that, but I didn't film in real time, obviously. I actually sped it up 4 times. So yeah, it took a while for these two, but the other ones did not take that long at all. It came off so easily, but that's okay. There are styrofoam pumpkins that you can buy and just do this very same project, but you may not get a variety of shapes and styles. So I stumbled across this craft just purely by accident. What I was trying to do was fill in some gouges in another pumpkin that I'd made. The peel was stuck on really badly and my nails got into it, and I thought, okay, you know what, why don't I try some spackle? So let me show you what I ended up doing, because I liked it so much. I just continued with the other shapes of pumpkins that I had, including these, and I even did 2 gourds as well, and they came out so nice looking. So let me show you how I spackled these, and let's have some fun.
Okay friends, so what I'll be doing in this segment is just using some spackle on these pumpkins. Now the night before I used speed dry, but today I'm trying Drydex. I have a container of Drydex, it's drying out, and I figured, okay, why don't I experiment and see how it goes? But I do not recommend Drydex. I recommend using the speed dry. So I have a little cup mixed with water and paint, and then I am just using my fingers to paste on the Drydex by wetting my fingers first in the paint and water mixture and then dipping them into the Drydex. And so the texture is kind of like melted cream cheese. So this is a pretty awesome sensory experience. So why don't I just let you watch and enjoy in peace.
Good morning, friends. I wanted to show you how our pumpkins turned out after I added the spackle yesterday. Okay, so this spackle that I used yesterday, I think it was the Drydex. It was okay. The reason I used it on these 2 pumpkins is because it was starting to dry out. I had it on hand and I was like, why don't I try using it up? But truth be told, I don't really love how it turned out. But this is what I used on my other pumpkins, and I'll show you guys those later on in the video. It's Speed Dry by LePage. I prefer this stuff. So last night what I did, it was too dark to film, but I went ahead, I took the other pumpkin, I added the Speed Dry with a little bit of pink paint, and I love how it came out. Like, it has like a stony finish. It looks really good. It's nice and smooth. And so this is what I'll be using on this other pumpkin today. I think I might actually add a second layer of Speed Dry. And the good news is it dries really quickly. So it does actually
speed dry. So let's go ahead and do that. Now this for me isn't about rushing. I just wanted to share that. I think you guys maybe at this point in time know on my channel that I craft because I find it to be something that is uber relaxing. It helps me to process. It helps me to self-regulate and decompress. And so I've been doing this since I was a kiddo, and that was just amazing for me. I was always up to something, doing something, and then crafting was kind of like my time of real like stillness and alignment. And I'll share more about that on my channel. But for now, let's continue with, let's work on this pumpkin with the speed dry. I'll show you how I do that. And then I'll put a second layer of speed dry and paint on this one.
Friends, it is late afternoon and my stony pumpkins are all done. Here's what they look like with the spackle all dry, and I absolutely love them. So I've already done 2 of these, and these are the other 2 that I decided to use the spackle on, and I love how they turned out. The texture is awesome, and I think you can achieve this with chalk paint too. But as I mentioned to you guys, I love experimenting with different things. And for me, this is just more about relaxation and really just enjoying myself when I craft. I really don't like to rush my crafting. I like to really just sit and ponder and, you know, just get really into the zone when I craft. And so now my next step is, and the decision that I have to make is, do I use the gold stems? So they originally came with this stem in sort of like a bronzy tone, and I think the gold with the pink is beautiful. Sorry, let me put that back in. Yeah, the gold with the pink I think is really, really pretty. And the other option is a piece of driftwood, and I've gotten paint on my finger. There we go. So with the driftwood though, what I've been doing is adding some gold paint to certain sections of the driftwood, and that looks lovely as well. So that stem would be kind of long, but I push it in quite a ways into the pumpkin. Let me see if I can do it with one hand. Let's see. There we go. So I don't know, I'll play around with both and see which I like better, the driftwood or the gold, but you guys can comment down below and let me know. I just don't want too many of these stems because quite a few of the pumpkins I've been working with have those stems as well. So I'll just kind of play around a bit and see what I come up with. But this is how our stony pumpkins came out, and stay tuned for the next craft.
Okay friends, so I found this gorgeous pumpkin at Walmart for $9.99 and I thought it would be super cute. I'll be using some chalk paint in the color sheepskin and applying everything with a chip brush, and I'll also be adding a little bit of pastel yellow paint, as you can see here, just to give me the bright shade of ivory. I really found that the chalk paint went on so easily and the drying time wasn't very long at all. Now I left the stem on my pumpkin just so that I'd be able to hold on to the pumpkin, but afterwards I removed it and then made sure to paint right where the stem came out, because I'm not going to be keeping the stems that came with these larger pumpkins. I have more than one, so you'll see the other one in a little bit, but I ended up doing 2 coats of paint on the pumpkins, and as I mentioned, it went on super easy. So if you were thinking about doing this project, you literally could have this done in one afternoon. The spackle project took a really long time. I was experimenting throughout this process, but if you really are in a pinch, here in Canada, Thanksgiving is just a few days away, you can get this done really quickly. I mean, I'm talking like one afternoon, and if your kiddos are capable, they might be able to help you paint your pumpkins as well. I went in afterwards with a little touch of the yellow again, just to make it a little bit more ivory. The sheepskin is sort of like an off-white, so I'm just blending this in, but certainly this worked so much better than just plain acrylic paint, so I'm really happy that I went ahead and picked up the chalk paint. Okay, so this pumpkin is from Michael's and it was $9.99, but I used a 40% off coupon, so I got it almost half price. Now the only thing with this pumpkin is that it's a carvable pumpkin, so you can actually use a hot knife and carve it. So originally I was thinking about cutting it open and doing a floral arrangement inside of it and then keeping the top of it sort of like a little beret on top of the flowers, but I think maybe that's a project I will leave for next year. But here I'm just using the exact same technique on this pumpkin that I used on the previous big one, but you can't really tell on camera. This was sort of like I'm gonna say like an ultra pure white. So if you're wondering like, why are you painting it? It looks exactly the same. It actually was more like a pure white. And then we've got this third pumpkin here from Walmart. It was $9.99 as well. And I contemplated keeping it, you know, the lighter color, the color it came in, sorry, the cream color, but eventually I painted it this to match the other two, and I did not regret doing that. It was a good move, I think, on my part. So I'm happy with that decision. And now where I pulled out the stems, I'm just going in and touching up so that there's no ivory or orange, or cream, I should say, of the other color. There isn't any of that exposed because I'm going to be using some driftwood for the stems. Okay, so now that my pumpkins are dry, I'm going to be adding my driftwood stems. These are so cute. So I chose two that were like pretty chunky, and these styrofoam pumpkins were kind of soft on the inside, so it wasn't very difficult to get the stems in. And I really love the way that these turned out. They looked super natural. They actually look like sort of like a natural stem. And yeah, this was easy, and I have tons of stems left over for another project. And here's a closer look in daylight at our pumpkins, all finished with their wooden stems. Okay, so now I'm going to work on our Michael's stem. I'm going to first paint it with some chalk paint and leave that to dry. I know the chalk paint's going to adhere, and it's also going to dry much faster than if I just brushed on the acrylic paint right away. So this was pretty easy. The stem was black, sort of, with like some gold streaks. I wanted it to look like the other two pieces of driftwood. Now I could have just cut it off and maybe put another stem in there, but I don't think these pumpkins are very thick. I think the shell is quite thin, and I wasn't willing to experiment and destroy it. So after that dried, I went in with a light brown and a chocolate brown acrylic paint, and I just kind of like mixed them together and kind of made it look random. So I found this gorgeous pumpkin at Dollarama here in Ontario, Canada. It was only $5, and I decided to do the same technique on it that I'd done on the other three pumpkins, the three bigger ones. So I thought it would make the perfect centerpiece, and of course my gears started grinding. So I painted it the lovely ivory with the yellowy accents and added the driftwood stem, and it turned out perfectly. Next, I took these two little woolly pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, removed the stick that they were on. That was pretty easy, just twist and pull and they came out. And I painted the stems gold, and I thought these were absolutely precious. So they're going on my son's play kitchen, and they make a beautiful addition to his Thanksgiving decor.
Hello my friends. Okay, so all of my pumpkins are finished now, and I'll just give you a little close-up. So this one right here, the biggest one, that one was from Michael's. This one back here and this one are from Walmart. And this one down here, this really cool one that is giving like Hobby Lobby type vibes, was from Dollarama here in Ontario, Canada. And all of these here are from Dollar Tree. And I didn't feature these ones on video, but these I prepared the exact same way that I did these other ones, just by peeling them and then painting them. But the quickest way to do all of this is really with chalk paint. Now, I had a lot of fun doing all of this. But if you wanted to do this, if you're in a hurry and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have any ideas for Thanksgiving and it's, you know, in a few days, you can just use chalk paint and you can literally get all of this done in one afternoon. That's without a lie, especially if you're doing like a pretty basic color palette. Now, what inspired me to do all of this are the items back here. So I found all of these crystal candle holders and candlesticks at my local thrift store. That's right, all of these beautiful crystal pieces were thrifted. There's nothing here over $10. This is my Aroma Ohm from Sage, and it looks beautiful when it's on with all of this crystal here. But all of these, like this is supposed to have a lampshade. There are two of them. This one as well. Yep, they're pumpkins. They're supposed to have a lampshade. They didn't have them, but these were, I think, $4.99 each. And then what I'll also tell you too is I did not buy all of these at once. I purchased them maybe one at a time, two at a time, and it was over quite a long period of time. But when I had started thinking about using this as a buffet, for some reason, I just started to visualize my pumpkins for Thanksgiving on candlesticks. And this is what came to mind. And so I was really fortunate, and I think anybody can be fortunate, because when you go to the thrift store, like this one, it was so grimy. I had no idea how beautiful it would turn out to be. In the morning when the sun comes through my patio door, all of this just creates like a rainbow effect on the wall. It's just absolutely stunning. So I'll be decorating over here with my pumpkins. Now this piece, it doesn't really, like the rest of them are round, as you can tell, but this piece right here, it's square, but why I like it, it has a little modern look to it. Everything is really antique-y, and in my home, I have a lot of antique pieces that I've thrifted over many, many years, not just recently. I am on a budget. You guys know that. I am a single mom, so I absolutely did not break the bank to do any of this. I really take my time when I design, I take my time when I craft, and I make sure that whatever it is I'm doing is well within my budget. I do create a budget for crafting and things of that nature, and I absolutely love upcycling. So this piece, I felt like it was really modern, and it went with the IKEA piece, and it's still crystal, so it ties in with the rest. So I didn't really want everything being the same. Like these two are from the same set. There was a third one, but I was like, I don't really want three of the same. And so I ended up picking up like these two on separate days. They have the same sort of concept, but still different style. I'll hold this one up so you can see. And this one as well, it was like super, super like filthy when I got it from the Goodwill. It had definitely been like in someone's garage or something, but it was that one was actually $4.99. And also the prices that I'm telling you are the price before my 20% off coupon, so I got them even cheaper. So whenever you donate, you also get a 20% off coupon if you donate to Value Village, which is where I go. But so up here I have a combination of you know, antiques, as well as sort of like a modern vibe to go with my acrylic chairs in my living room. Here's some more antiques that I have over here that tie in. I'll do another video with these pieces here, but and I made these lavender bouquets. I'll show you guys those in another video, but I just wanted to show you what my inspiration was for how I am about to style all of my pumpkins. And I'll show you my light fixture. Let me step back a bit here and not crash into anything, but that is my light fixture from IKEA. It is not an antique style, rustic style, French country style chandelier whatsoever, and neither are my acrylic chairs, but some way, somehow, I'm just able to have everything just sort of work together and jive and basically just reflect the personality of everyone living in this home. So I just wanted to give you a little brief kind of rundown as to what we're going to be working with. In my last video, I showed you guys all the books that were on this train table. They're all gone now. These are the florals I'll be using to go ahead and decorate that area as well. So that's what I'll be doing next. And then I also picked up these little crystal candlesticks. Again, these were like so grimy from the thrift store, but they're so beautiful. I think these were $5.99 each. And again, I used my 20% off coupon. So all of these were picked up over the course of several weeks, not just like buying these all at once. And hey, if you can do that, that's great. But I wanted to tell you that, you know, that's the wonderful part about thrifting, especially when you don't necessarily want a set of something. You can really just take your time, make a budget, and do that. So I think that's important for me to share with you, because it is a real part of how my life is today. And I do have to be budget conscious and do things that are budget friendly, but also give myself the opportunity to have a creative outlet. Okay, but that's about it for now. Next, let's get started on actually decorating and setting these up for Thanksgiving.
So I decided to create a centerpiece using my wooden fruit bowl and 3 foam blocks from the Dollar Tree, floral foam blocks that is. Wow, that was a mouthful. So I'm just cutting down some stems, some leafy green stems I found at Dollarama. I love using these. If you saw my French country floral video, then you'll know what they are. And if you haven't, I highly recommend that you check that video out. But I'll be using the same technique that I did in that video. So I'm just trimming down the greens and creating sort of like a circular pattern around the pumpkin. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be adding glue to any of this because this is my fruit bowl, and it's okay if things move around. They'll be pretty secure inside of the foam blocks. It's just if you bump the pumpkin or something, it might end up moving. So for right now, what I've done, or you'll see in a little bit, the pumpkin, by the time I add all of the flowers, it's a little bit lower than I wanted it to be. So I lifted it and put a book under it, and then I also had this little wooden heart that's about ½ an inch thick, and I put that in as well. So here I'm just kind of messing around with where to put the hydrangeas, where to put the roses. And I decided instead of them being all on one side, I would almost do just the roses all the way around and separate the hydrangeas so that they're on either side of the pumpkin. Not sure if I'm overly thrilled with how everything came out, but I will say that I absolutely love the color palette. I love the color scheme, and I do think it looks gorgeous. I just think that if I maybe had a bit more time, I could play around a little bit more with it. I just wasn't feeling the fall color vibe this year. I felt more like I wanted some brighter colors and some pink. Maybe it's because it rained so much this summer this year. I feel like we didn't get a lot of brightness and a lot of sun. And here in Canada, some days are quite dark, quite gloomy in the winter. So I thought I would just kind of keep the brightness and the freshness going just a little bit longer, even if it's just with my decor. And it makes the transition from summer to fall much easier because I already have my prayer altar with the pinks and the roses, and I decorate with roses all throughout my house. My front door wreath, which I haven't shown you guys, is a grapevine wreath where I use all of these very same florals as well. And so that is kind of what inspired me to continue with this. So the transition from summer to fall, you know, Canadian Thanksgiving is like pretty early in the fall. It's like the 1st or 2nd week of October. This year it's October 14th. So that's just in a few days. So back to school just kind of takes up all of my time, and having these things prepared, it makes it a little bit easier, especially using this color palette. I don't have to like completely like take down all of my summer stuff and transition to a whole new color palette. It's just a smoother transition for me. So I'm just continuing to add the different roses all the way around, and you can see the pumpkin kind of starting to get sort of buried by the flowers. And so this is where I just continued adding the roses because I knew at that point I would need to put it up on a little bit of a platform. So that's where I ended up using the book. And if you have enough room as well, you can probably cover some books in like some really nice paper and actually have the books be visible. I think that would look really nice, especially like some ivory colored books with like gold pages. I think that would look really, really cute, especially if you like the whole French provincial vibe like I do. Yeah, maybe that's something I'll add to my checklist.
Good morning, friends. So here is our centerpiece in daylight. Now I'm just giving you a little sneak peek, but I've also since last night added some greenery, just some leaves to my little pumpkin, and they're the same leaves that I have in this centerpiece. And on this biggest pumpkin from Michael's, now this is a foam pumpkin that you can carve. I won't be doing that this year. I think I'll leave that for a project next year. I just won't have time to film it all. In the event that I do, I'll add it later on. But for today, what I'm planning on doing is just using a drill bit about the same size. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It's about the same size as the stem of this rose. And so what my plan is just to drill a little hole right here so that I can put this rose in next to the stem. So I'll have to drill it somewhere in this region, and then I'm just going to feed the rose right into the hole and then add some greenery as like the other pumpkins. And so this will help the pumpkins tie in with our centerpiece, and then of course our other little pink pumpkins. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and we'll start decorating our space back there. Okay, friends, so I drilled a hole in the side of the pumpkin right here, and the flower wasn't really sitting the way that I really wanted to. So I went back and drilled a hole. I don't know if you can see it, but right there at the side of the stem. And that's the perfect spot because the hole is actually hidden. Now I can fill this up with spackle, that's not a big deal, but I made it a point to drill it kind of like in the same area that I'd be placing the flower. So the flower is going to end up covering this hole. So this hole did not work out. I thought it would. As it turned out, it worked better here. And let me see if I can do it one-handed and show you. Probably not. Oh, yeah, there we go. And we're going to tuck that in. So that's what it's going to look like now. And I'm just going to hot glue a little greenery. So we'll end up having our centerpiece and our other pumpkins tie in together. So let me get started on that, and then we'll start decorating.
So I found this lovely willow stem at Michael's, and I thought it would be perfect for this vessel I have over here, and started out with that. Now I did add the rose to this pumpkin, but in the end I really didn't like it, so I ended up removing it, and instead I added it to the decor pieces on, or I should say around the pumpkins on either side or both ends of the buffet. It just wasn't looking right. It looked a little bit off. I kind of felt like it looked out of place. And afterwards as well, I went back and moved some things around. You'll see me add some acorns in a moment, and it just made the space look a little bit too cluttery. So I removed the acorns, and in the end I ended up putting them on the dining table. So after I removed the rose from the large pumpkin you see in the background there, I took one other rose and I decided to move around some of the pumpkins, which I'll show you in the end, and I put one little rose just next to all of the little antique silverware that I have there within like a little cluster of pumpkins, and then I put one on the opposite end of the buffet near the cowbell with another little cluster of pumpkins, and to me that looked much better. And then the acorns are scattered all around the centerpiece in the middle, so the pedestals don't look all cluttered, and then we still have the roses tied in, and I feel like in the end it turned out exactly the way that I wanted it to. Okay, my friends, so now it's time for the final look. After moving some things around, shifting the acorns, adding some roses to the buffet, I am really happy with how everything turned out. If you like this video, I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and share. And please do keep coming back. May you have a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving as you celebrate with your family and friends. I'll see you in the next one.